Hello, y'all. Welcome to a brand new episode of NEPA Story. I'm so glad you're here. In this episode of NEPA Story, we're introducing you to Eric Boylan. Eric has a full-time job as a middle school music teacher at Abington Heights. He's in year 11 and teaches fourth grade beginning violin and fifth grade beginning band with over 350 students in the program. On the weekends, he's a wedding photographer with over 23 bookings in 2024. He also does some family photography, maternity, and headshots. It is his fourth year in business and it's literally going great from what I've seen. But before he started doing photography, he was in multiple cover bands as a drummer, including fairly well-known wedding bands Picture Perfect and Hoopla. He also used to teach local marching bands, including Pittston area, Lake Lehman, Wyoming area, Dallas, and Wyoming Valley West. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today on NEPA Story. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So, of course, you are widely known with doing music and photography, but where did those passions really start for you?
This is a long answer for sure. When it comes to the music side of things, especially, I kind of started off. I was about 3 or 4 years old. My brother was just hitting the fourth grade at Pittston area, and he came home with a trumpet one day. And my mom and dad said, "Oh, Eric, what do you want to do in fourth grade?" And I remember I was like 3 or 4 years old, and my response back was, "Oh, drums." My parents just looked at me and was like, "You know exactly what you want to do?" I said, "Yeah, drums. I definitely want to do drums." And they were like, "Okay." So as a surprise, they went out and got me one of those cheap little drum sets sort of thing. And I started sitting down on it and playing it every single day. And I guess my parents saw something in me at that point in time. They knew that it was something that I really liked doing. So they got me some drum lessons starting around 5 years old. And I really just kind of took off from there. So I did drums every day. I would come home and practice. My dad worked on the ambulance and did overnights and everything like that. So I would have to find times within his schedule that I can come home and practice. And it's just something I fell in love with. I got to the middle school level at Pittston area, and Mr. Lemoncelli found me, and he came to me and said, "Hey, you need to join the marching band." And I remember I said to him, "I'm going to do football." And he said, "No, you're not going to do football. You're going to do marching band." And I said, "No, I'm going to do football." I went to one football practice, got beat up pretty bad, and decided I'm going to head over to the marching band. So I went over to the marching band, and literally day one, it was just something I fell in love with. So I realized right then and there that like music is definitely going to be a big part of my life for the rest of my life. And that was in seventh grade. So I did marching band all through seventh grade, well, all through middle school and high school. And then when I got to the end of my high school career and it was time to decide where I was going to go to college and what I was going to do, I chose to go to Lebanon Valley, which is right outside of the Hershey area. It was a wonderful college. I actually went for music recording because I didn't think at that time that I was prepared to be an educator. And I also thought that music recording was something that I would really enjoy. Unfortunately, didn't really work out that way. I knew like as I started getting into music recording, I just realized it wasn't the right place for me. And I switched over to music education in my junior year. So I did an extra year of college because of those choices, but it's okay. I got out of there, kind of wandered from school to school teaching all different marching bands. So like you said, I was at Pittston area, Wyoming area, Lake Lehman, Dallas, Wyoming Valley West. I did a couple schools down in the Hershey area from when I was in college. So Northern York, and there's a couple other ones, but I can't remember what they are. It was a long time ago. But I worked with them for a long time, trying to find that full-time job, that elusive full-time job. At the time, teaching was something that was there was not a whole lot of job openings at that point, which is very different than now. And I was really, really trying to find something. Something opened up in Mountain View. I did 1 year there, and then something opened up at Abington Heights. So I came down to Abington Heights. I spent 4 years as the high school director there. And then after 4 years, I was moved to the middle school, and I absolutely love it. So I teach fifth grade band right now, fourth grade violin, and I have a couple general music classes with some of the younger grades as well. And I absolutely love it. Like it really is a cool job that like I get to go and work with kids doing something that I love doing myself. Um, around the COVID time frame. I was before COVID, I was actually in some wedding bands, as you said. So for about 10 years, I would go and do that. I was in Picture Perfect and Hoopla. COVID hit, and we were kind of stuck at home. All those weddings were canceled. Everything kind of wasn't happening at that point in time. So I picked up my old camera. And my dad, was a photographer when I was growing up. He was a big inspiration to me for that. I picked up my old camera and I started taking pictures of my son Alex and posting them up on Facebook and on Instagram. And people were like, "Oh, hey, you're already in the wedding scene. You've already been doing this wedding band thing for 10 years. Will you come and shoot my wedding?" So I came and I did two friends' weddings, and I fell in love with that. And it was just something that I decided I'm going to start my own business and move in a different direction than music. But there's a lot of similarities that I found as I went throughout from music to photography. There's a lot of those moments where you have to catch the rhythm of the day. And it's just, I, I love it. And for 4 years now, I've kind of been picking up steam and getting more bookings every year.
Well, like with weddings and photographing, at least you get to hear music for free though. Like
Yes.
you just get paid
I'm
for
not
it.
playing.
Like that's the best part.
Yeah.
But at the age of 4, like saying you want to drum, like that's insane that you knew you wanted to do that at 4 years old. Like at 4 years old, I can barely talk. Like I could not say I wanted to do drums at 4 years old and pursuing that. Like at
My
4 years
mom has
old, like you're trying to figure out words to talk.
Yeah,
Like
my mom has a
barely
picture of me.
drums.
My mom has a picture of me sitting on the floor with the little drum set at 4 years old with the drumsticks. Just like you could just see the intensity on my face of like wanting to figure this thing out.
Oh
It was
my
kind
God. Like at 4 years old, I didn't even think I would do anything, honestly, let alone doing music. Like, but hey, at least you knew from a young age what you wanted to do though. I didn't even know till like I don't know, like 2 years ago. So it's insane. Like at 4 years old, like you barely even know what to like function without your parents, let alone a career in like 15 years.
Yeah, I have a 4 year old right now, and he's kind of following in the same footsteps. He loves to come in here and hit the drums and play the piano and make up his own little songs and stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. But he seems to really have a love for music as well.
Hey, you gotta bring that thing down to him now.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're raising a little 2.0 there, man. Like, it's a little 2.0. But like, how do you balance like your roles as a full-time music teacher and a wedding photographer? Because I know you do that on weekends, with photography, but how do you balance both of those roles?
Very carefully. I think the hardest part in balancing all of it is trying to figure out all the little subsectors of each that I'm going to need to kind of like schedule out and figure out like, okay, how much time do I spend on the editing side of things? How much time do I spend on the advertising and the updating of my website and my social media? How much time do I spend preparing and doing lesson planning for school? Because we all know that that doesn't happen during the school day. That happens almost all the time at home because there's other things that happen during that school day. And then trying to figure out how I'm going to implement each little thing. And lastly, I'm one I'm not afraid to sub out and look for other people to help me within it. Obviously, I'm always the one holding that camera because it is Eric Boylan photography. But I don't have a problem having somebody help me on the social media side of things. I did have somebody help me a little bit on my website and on my SEO in order to try to produce more clients and more bookings that way and on my branding. So I'm okay with you spending a little bit of the money that I'm making to make my life a little bit easier, spend some time with my 4 year old son, and still be able to be a teacher and a photographer at the same time.
I honestly can't imagine how hard it is. Of course, with doing both of those things and also raising a 4-year-old son, like I can barely manage the work I'm doing and spend time with family, let alone doing a photography business, working at a full-time job at high school or middle school,
Mhm.
and also raising a 4-year-old son. Like I cannot imagine, and I can barely manage my life and also taking time for family, let alone doing all those things.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I've actually found a few AI components that I use within my editing side of things. So there's a few programs that they do cost a smaller portion of money, but it is something that I can utilize to try to get I still go in and hand edit everything because I am that way. Like I need to look at every photo and make sure it's right. But there's a couple programs out there that they do a really good job of taking my style, using a couple other photos to gather that information and applying it across a section of photos within a gallery. So you can kind of get away with doing that and then going in and spending less time just checking it and making sure that it's correct within. So it's giving you a better base to work with on that side of things.
It's crazy to see how much AI has gotten big over the years. Like with editing, I didn't even know AI was like known to do sort of thing. I know it's like big for like writing, like different sort of things
Yeah.
like that, but I never knew there was like a photography or editing side of that.
There's actually two different programs. There's one that does editing and another one that actually does all the culling, which is going through the 4,000 plus photos of a wedding day and making sure that anything where a person's eyes are closed is kind of tossed aside. So you're not putting closed eyes photos in. Anything that's blurry or not in focus is kind of set into its own little folder. So it does help you make sure that you have less to go through at the end of the day. It's not perfect. You still have to go through and check it, but it is something that you can utilize. As a teacher, I really find it interesting because the big conversation now in education is how AI will be used by students.
Mm,
And I know that there's a lot of people in the community and teachers that are anti-AI and using AI, but for me as a photographer, utilizing that in such a way and knowing that it does exist to help my students to give them less stress and anxiety in their normal school day is also something that I really realize as well by having this business of my own and utilizing that. So it's kind of transferred over. I know it could be abused, and you know that there will always be some kids that will abuse it. But I think that the kids that really will utilize it are going to learn how to utilize it in a way that is going to be very useful in the future.
for sure. So, what has been the most like challenging part of running a photography business? Of course, with starting a business, you have to brand it, but what has been the most challenging part of it for you?
I think you hit it right on the head right there. For me, the most challenging part was figuring out my own branding and persona. Um, I guess you could say I'm not as honest with myself as I think I am. When I first started off, I was trying to really copy others, and it's I would say my first year in business was me just looking at my other favorite photographers and other people that I looked up to. And kind of copying them, which I think that's what everybody in their first year of business does. But it wasn't speaking for who I am as a person. I'm a very outgoing, fairly extroverted person. I'm very creative. I love being creative, and my favorite part of photography and a wedding day is being able to capture those connections, those interpersonal connections, because that's what I love is being like this connection between you and I right now, being able to have this conversation, looking each other in the eye and seeing how we're reacting to each other. Like that's for me what it's all about, whether it's maternity, family, portraits, or anything. It's getting that expression and getting those emotions. So my branding wasn't matching that at first. And so, like I said, I hired somebody to try to help me with that because I knew it was something that I needed some help with. And he was absolutely fantastic. And he really helped me craft a little bit more. He more so got in my brain and got me to think about how I am and how how I want to portray that. And I think you'll see now on my website and on my social media that I very much try to tell the story of the couple and their connection. I try to show that connection between the couple and their guests, or even sometimes with myself. I really like showing more of the guests and the couple rather than hey, look at my camera. I like having them interact with each other a lot more. And then on my website, I have areas about candid photography, the dance floor and the connection on the dance floor, and how my guests connect with one another. So I think that the branding has really probably been the absolute hardest part for me.
That is honestly the same way that I've been. I know when I started out doing this a few years ago, like I felt like I needed to copy others because their maybe the views are big or whatever it may be. I was like, oh, they're doing this and they're getting maybe thousands of views. Why not? I just do that so I can get views for myself and help, grow the business or whatever it is. But of course, when you follow each other's lead, like it says you're not gonna get tons of views with everyone that is doing a certain thing. Like it's everyone can see it. It's just a matter of you realizing that you're just copying others just because they're getting a bunch of bookings or whatever it is. And it took me a while to actually realize not to do the same thing as others. Like it's honestly a pain to actually brand your work. Honestly, that's the biggest part for me is actually branding. Like I
Mhm.
can't stand it, but it's also entertaining. I don't know why, but it's also fun and not fun at the same time. Like, it can just be a pain in the butt to actually figure out how to brand it and grow your business. It's something that I'm still trying to figure out years later.
Yeah, and I think it's something that every artist and entrepreneur deals with no matter what is the how to find yourself. So I think once again it really does transfer over as like between the arts and business ownership. I think that there's so much that I've learned in the arts that really kind of helped me in all of this. I know I keep on going back to that, but I'm a major proponent of like do
Mhm.
something in the arts. Like it's going to help you everywhere.
Mhm.
So as a musician, learning how to have my own voice and my own style and do things differently than others and not be afraid to do something differently than others kind of it's the same thing. It took me a while when I was younger to find my own musical voice, and I think it's the same thing as an adult. Like it takes you a little while to find your own voice in whatever you're doing.
It really does. But to wrap up this episode, like how can people connect with you and like your photography business?
I think the best way is through my website. I have a contact form on my website that you can fill out to get a hold of me. But I'm okay with a message on Facebook if that's easiest, or even a message through Instagram if that's what's easiest for you.
Perfect. I will put all of that information, everything in the description, so it's much easier for everyone to not keep scrolling everywhere and figuring out where to find it.
I
But
appreciate it.
I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. I know it's been a hot minute switching up with each episode and actually releasing some, but there's tons of things scheduled. So fingers crossed we actually get on a grind with this podcast compared to my others. But I really appreciate you, Eric, for joining us today. I know it's been a whirl a couple of weeks, but I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. And thank you everything for you're doing.
You're welcome. I appreciate you doing this. I think that it's important to put a spotlight on just the locality and the this northeastern Pennsylvania. I think there's a lot of amazing people in this area that I've met and connected with through music and photography that really deserve to have the spotlight shown on them.
For sure. There's honestly tons of people that are doing amazing things. And
Yes.
it's honestly like so hard to keep track. Like because there's so many things going on that it's so hard to keep track. But that's what's best about Northeastern PA is that this is a community where people actually care about each other and care about each other's work, which is honestly awesome to see, and there's really nothing that I would honestly rather be part of than this community. It's really awesome to see people striving to make people happy and be their better selves, of course, is a great thing.
Very much agree.
So thank you so much everyone for listening. I will see you guys next episode. Make sure to subscribe, like, review, and to stay tuned for next episode. And I'll talk to you guys soon. And thank you, Eric, for coming on. I hope you have a great
Thank you,
rest of
Carl.
your